Hi, my name is Hugh Kelleher, a Newburyport resident, and I'm here to talk about the founding of the Greater Newburyport Village and mention a few of the people who were involved in its early days. It started really as a thought, of course. A problem came up that a couple of us noticed. And it was brought to my attention by a neighbor of my in-laws, my parents-in-law, who lived on Charles Street down in the South End. They had moved here around 2008, 2009, and my late wife, Susie, and I were living up on Summit Place. Ross and Carolyn, her parents, had been living in Brooksville, Maine, and they were already in their late 70s, approaching 80, and they decided it would be good to be near family. So they found a nice place down there in the South End and moved in. They had a neighbor named David Ross, and David actually was right next door, and he and his wife, really nice people, they became very helpful in assisting Ross and Carolyn getting the snow shoveled and all that. And of course, Sue and I were involved, and we'd take them to their doctor appointments. They were still driving at that point, but it wasn't long before they weren't able to drive any longer. And one day, their neighbor David Ross said to me, "Gee, Hugh, I look at your parents-in-law, Ross and Carolyn, such great people, very capable people, but what would they do in a situation if they didn't have you and Sue around?" And I said, "David, you got a point there. You're raising a very good question." And David said to me, "Hugh, I hope that when I get to be their age, that I would not be left without a good support system." And David had a couple of kids, but they were already living away. One was, I believe, in New York, one was studying in London. And David said, "What we really need in Newburyport is a system, an organization, some method that would be supportive to people as they age." And so David was really the person who brought this issue up originally. And he and I started kicking some ideas around. We both felt strongly about the problem that was being presented. And we, as one of our first steps, we went up to Anna Jake's Hospital, and we met with the CEO, Delia O'Connor, and Mark Goldstein, who was the VP. Mark is now the CEO. And we said to Delia, "You know, you deal, your hospital obviously deals a lot with people as they age. We have this concern." We described it to her. What do people do if they reach an age where they don't need to go into assisted living, but they're having trouble, say, getting the trash out, or getting the lawn cut, or getting to their appointments because they're no longer driving? And we had a terrific conversation, and Delia made a very good suggestion. She said, "You know, we're a hospital, we like your idea a lot, but we're not in a position to be able to set up a social agency or a support network. But what I would suggest would be that you talk to Elder Services of Merrimack Valley up in Lawrence." Now, that's an organization that does work throughout the Merrimack Valley. And just coincidentally, I just want to mention my mom. My mom, when she was in her 70s into her 80s, actually worked as a home aide for Merrimack Valley Elder Services and eventually became a trained counselor. And she retired at 82, was bored, and went back to work with them at 85. So she was always a model to me as someone who really believed in this kind of thing and did something about her belief. In any case, we went up to Elder Services of Merrimack Valley, met with the CEO, and they had a vice president, Meg Hogan. Meg had, in fact, assisted in the creation of a village in Andover and North Andover. When I say a village, I mean a village like the one we have today in Newburyport. It was an organization designed to help people remain in their homes as they age. And Meg had worked with quite a group, apparently, in Andover and North Andover. And their village got off the ground, but it didn't stay off the ground. It lasted just a couple of years for whatever reason, and it's a demonstration of the challenges that get faced whenever you're trying to start a new organization. But David and I very much felt that in Newburyport, because the communities here, Newburyport, West Newbury, Newbury, Amesbury, we're all united in some way. I guess it's hard to describe, but I think people who live here know the feeling I'm getting at. And we said, gee, Meg, this is a very interesting model. And it turns out I had actually heard of the village movement, although I had never put two and two together. I had heard of the Beacon Hill Village, and I had heard of its real success. So Meg met with me and David, and we met for months talking about what could be done, how would you do it. And we began to put together a group of people who we believed, after talking with them, could be very helpful to us in getting an organization like this started. And at the time, we talked with people like Doug Bolick. Doug was our first lawyer. Doug joined our initial board. I'm not sure if I would call it a board. It was basically an organizing group at the time. Stephanie and Fred Huffnagel joined our group, as did Jack Pramberg, who was very helpful in finding us some initial funding. Bill Jaros was eventually involved. There were a number of people, and we, for a while, actually had an executive director to help organize all of this. Mary Doucette was our first, and then succeeded by Ellen Chulak, both of whom were terrific people who really helped move the idea forward. And, of course, Paul Harrington became involved around that time as well. And needless to say, Paul, becoming the head of the board, has had an incredible impact on building the effectiveness of the organization. So that's a bit of the history of how things got started. It took a number of years. The first idea, as I said, came about back around 2010, and here we are, 2020, and it's an incredible testament as far. When I look at what's happened, I am honestly astonished. When David Ross and I were talking, we had no clear idea where we might be headed. And I look around today and I see the committees, I see the large number of people who have really interesting backgrounds with lots of talents who are putting time into this. Our organization is doing things now, holding events, dinners, trips. It's astounding to me. It's succeeded far beyond what I even imagined. So I'm grateful to all the folks, and I'm sure there's some I haven't mentioned, but so many people have made a contribution, and it's something I think we can all take a lot of satisfaction in. So, they're my thoughts. Thank you very much.